Alex, what's your biggest career regret?
I thought about this when you posed the question, and it's a hard question to answer because on one side, I don't have regrets, but that's because like there's this belief in like cause and effect, and like I like where I'm at today, so it's hard to say that anything was a regret. But I think if I wistfully think back, like on some of the pitfalls that I had made, or if I had lived a different life, right? Um, I don't know. Like I've through my entire career, I've been very anxious, and I was always wanting more and like the next thing, and I always felt like what I had wasn't enough, or I wasn't enough for that role. And I wasn't like a career hopper. I didn't do like 6 month, 1 year stints. Like there's people who really strategically do that because they want to go up as fast as they can. And I think what
Hmm.
happens with those people is one of two things. One, probably more common, is they disappear and basically it wasn't for them and they were trying to build the scaffolding on something that actually didn't exist for them. Like it was all purely status and anxiety based. And then the
Yeah,
other one is somebody gets to a point where they actually reach a place of like dissatisfaction and they're like, what the fuck am I doing? And then they find a place of comfort with where they're at. And I think that happens sometimes too. But I sometimes wonder, it's like in those moments where I felt some sense of dissatisfaction, like I wasn't growing enough. What if I had just like pushed down and like been okay with being comfortable and feeling safe? Like I think
right.
I was always afraid of feeling safe in a role because early in my career, like I've talked to David about this before. It's a little weird to say, but I've always felt like I was going to get fired at any moment.
Yep.
Like, and that stopped a couple of years ago. I think I resolved enough whatever tensions in myself to know that
Yeah,
that's
where
not
does that
gonna.
stem from, do you think?
Oh, we're going deep.
Yeah, if you want to
We don't have that much time, so.
I could talk to my therapist. Yeah, no, it's a tough question and it's a valid one. But yeah, I felt like in environments where I felt like comfortable and safe, like that, it provoked me to, to want to run to the next thing. So
Hmm.
sometimes I wonder like what would happen if during those periods, like maybe you stuck it out and like pushed on, like what would happen? Maybe there is a breakthrough that I missed, right? Like maybe
Yeah.
that's something that I could have pushed onward for. Another regret, and it's not feasible, but I have always known that I wanted to start businesses. So like doing so late in my 20s feels later than I should have. And granted, I was doing freelancing, which is kind of like that. Not in my mind, like what I was actually wanting to do. But I had a ton of student debt, and like if I would have done it right out of college, like I maybe could have raised a bunch of money and done it that way, but it felt very precarious. So I think there are certain external circumstances that prevent people from following those things, even if you want to. Um, but yeah, sometimes I wonder, like, what if I just, launched a startup when I was 22, 23 and like really pushed, for that home run? Like what would have
Yep.
happened then? But I think, feasibility wise, it makes sense why I didn't.
Yep, makes sense. What about you, Allie? What's your biggest career regret?
Well, I'm the same as Alex, where I was driven a lot by anxiety, a lot of fear, which I think I've come to terms with more of that in recent years too, but you're not alone. Um, there's a couple things. A lot of the things I regret are things I didn't do. Um, One is I wish I had a different major. And I say all this with a grain of salt because obviously I probably wouldn't be here today if things like
Right.
happen as they did. But yeah, I wish I had either pursued English or journalism or just something just ridiculous because they're just never going to be in that position again to just learn for the sake of it. And I freaking loved school. Um,
Hmm.
so I sometimes wish I had just, I don't know. Because again, it's not worth thinking about that really too much. But the other regret I have, and I guess it's like partially a regret and partially a lesson to, because I can change this today. Every single job I've had, including this agency, I've been basically recruited or invited to join, which is it's very like good for a personality like mine because it's basically validation, right? Like, and I
Hmm.
sometimes I need that, but I haven't really pursued something and just been like, you should fucking hire me because I'm good at this XYZ, or maybe
Interesting.
tried something like just for the sake of it. And again, like I'm only 27, so like I have time to do stuff like that. But I think back to like a lot of the hesitations and the things I sat on until I got this like external sense of like, hey, you should come here. Like the HubSpot role, I found that role months before Jamie reached out to me, and I was like, nah, I'm not good enough for this.
Wow.
I'm not gonna be good enough till I'm like 50. Like, I don't know.
So as part of your
was.
growth, to be able to have that opportunity to actually seek something out and pursue it fully.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically just building confidence, but I just had never, I don't know. I've always looked for that external validation, and it was the same with like I got a full ride to school, and that was why I chose the college that I did, and it's obviously paid dividends today.
Mm-hmm.
But I think about like, what if I just like took a risk and tried to go to my dream school? Because like I really had a couple other schools in mind, and again, wouldn't be sitting here without what happened. But I think it's been a good lesson for me for the next, I don't know, 50.
At least you're aware of it, you know?
Yeah. So in terms of regrets, like that's the only regret I have. Not because I wish I had done something different, but because I wish I had reached a point of confidence earlier in my career. Because I think it would have helped soothe and like smooth a lot of things I've been through that probably weren't necessary to feel. But I mean, we are here today, so
it is what it is.
Yeah. But that's like a regret and a lesson that I have.
It's
Yeah,
a good
I just
one.
wonder about that with the anxiety. And I wonder if like it's like when a rich person gets really rich and says like, oh, I didn't need the money to make me happy. It's like, well, that's great that you can say that in your vantage point. Like, do you want to give it all up now? And they never do. So I do wonder sometimes, like, because I resonate and feel the same way. I'm like, did I need to be that anxious? Did I need to have that frenetic pace, that always grasping? And maybe the answer is no. And maybe I did just waste a lot of, mental.
Well, I think it's how our brains are wired. I mean, we don't have problems like finding food anymore or shelter. We have all of that. So our brain is always wired to look for new problems, which creates more anxiety. I think it's just how we are.
Well, and the thing that makes me feel better is like we're relatively young, like sure that might have been our main driver for the last decade or so, but it doesn't have to be for the next. And I think it's taught us like, at least it's taught me a lot of important lessons. And yeah, so I don't harp on it too much mentally, because there's still like more to be done. But yeah, I think about that sometimes too. Like if I hadn't felt like I was on the cusp of failure every day, like would I be where I am today?
Yeah. So interesting.
I had something similar. I think, I don't know, 2015 to 2018, 19, I had these list of business ideas. I had kind of stopped and started a lot. Like I wanted to create a course. I wanted to create these templates. And I was always trying to fight the idea of doing a marketing agency because it didn't seem sexy. Like I wanted to eventually do like a software startup, but I was like, I don't have any ideas. I'm not an engineer. How do I do that? And I think part of it was confidence too, for sure. So part of me wishes there was less fear, but I kind of forgive myself for that because, I mean, certain upbringings, particularly for me, it was like, don't take risks. Like, don't do that. That's not what you do type of thing that eventually I broke out of. So maybe the answer to that is like, I wish I got a therapist sooner.
Yes, that's the real answer from all of us.
I think we all agree.
If you take one thing away from this episode.
Yeah.
Therapy.
But I'll take it in a different direction. One thing I realized I did a lot when I was at HubSpot was I was looking like left and right a lot around what other people are doing. And I'd start working with these people who went to Harvard and Dartmouth and Yale and people who got MBAs. And I'm like, oh, I'm not as good as them. I didn't go to Harvard, or like maybe I should get my MBA. And I studied for the GRE. I took the GRE, didn't score super well, but I felt like I was spending so much time comparing, like maybe using the wrong measuring stick, where like now I feel like I'm much more intentional with who I'm comparing myself to, and I'm going in a direction I want to go. But there was this word that I fell on that I'm going to share when I was super into philosophy, which is probably when I asked Alex if he believes in free will. But there's this word, I think a Greek word that's euthymia. And Seneca defines it as believing in yourself and trusting that you're on the right path and not being in doubt by following the myriad of footpaths of those wandering in every direction. And the moment I read that, I was like, fuck. Yep, I'm just going to trust that I'm on the right fucking path. I'm going to stop comparing myself to other people who probably don't know what they're doing either. And just
Everyone's
trust the
figuring it out.
process and have faith. And it sounds fluffy, but having taking that approach has just made things much easier, because instead of thinking about all the possible options in my life and like having anxiety about all the things I'm missing out on, I just feel much more focused on the thing I'm going for with this group particularly, and not worrying too much about what I'm missing out on. So I wish I got to that earlier. I felt like I wasted a lot of time and energy stressing out about grad school and all of that.